Hello, Daily Bible readers. This is our day 204 preview of our reading of the New Testament and of Genesis. Today's reading will come from Revelation chapter 12. Now, in Revelation chapter 11, we've finished, at least from the way I view it, the last of the seven trumpets, and we pass into a new sort of section of the book of Revelation. In this particular section, I feel we're going to see more of the Empire of Rome as specifically mentioned, though we're still going to be discussing it from a very very vision standpoint. Keep that in mind. This is a vision. A lot of signs are happening. In fact, in this chapter, it starts out with giving us two, what it calls them signs, two signs that appear in heaven. And we might even consider these to be signs that have a heavenly source as from whence they come. And the first of those is going to be the sign of a woman clothed in the sun with the moon under her feet and her head as a garland of 12 stars. Now, we talked about 12 being sort of a holy number, the 12 tribes, the 12 apostles. And so this woman is clothed with something, with a garland of holiness, of the plan of God, we might say. And then the second sign, she is with child, and she is crying out in labor and in pain to give birth. Okay, and so she is a part of a process, or in a part of the process of giving birth. The second sign that appears in heaven is of a fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 10 diadems on its head, which diadems are crowns. All right, and so we've got a very scary beast now, and this one has 7 heads. So a completeness of its wisdom. It has a complete wisdom, and it has 10 horns. Horns represent power, and so it has a completeness of power, at least within the places where it has heads, and it seems to have some sort of a victory on each one of these heads of a diadem. And so it is not without power, might be the best way to describe this dragon that comes out. And when he comes out, he, in fact, shows his power. With his tail, he draws a third of the stars and throws them to the earth. And the dragon stands before the woman. And here, I think, is the important part to recognize with what happens with this dragon, is it stands before the woman who is ready to give birth to devour her child as soon as it was born. In other words, it's waiting. This dragon, whoever it is, and we'll see that in a minute, is waiting to devour the child that's going to be brought forth from the woman. Putting those three things together kind of helps us see who each of these are in this vision. Now, it's going to take some understanding of some of the Old Testament, but in verse 5 says that she bore a male child. All right, and so this is something that has already occurred, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and his throne. Well, that sounds very descriptive of a particular child that was born of a virgin woman as part of God's plan, and now resides in heaven on his throne, where he rules with the rod of iron. That's what his purpose was. Now, this woman is said to have fled into the wilderness, where she was where she has a place prepared by God, and she should feed her there 1,260 days. We had that number the other day, didn't we, in chapter 11? Remember, that's about 3.5 years, which is about the time period that we needed to reach that half point of what was prophesied in the book of Daniel. So we need some Old Testament. We also have a prophecy back from Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, of the seed of woman that was going to be at enmity with the seed of the serpent, and that the seed of the serpent was going to bruise the heel of the seed of the woman, and the seed of the woman was going to crush the head of the serpent. And that serpent is now seen here. That woman, we could take that woman from, we might say she is the symbol, because remember, she's a sign of the promise made to the woman, Eve, in the garden, that has perpetuated itself through the 12 tribes. Remember the 12 stars on her garland, up until the time of the birth of that child by a virgin woman, Mary bringing forth that child, and the victory that it won by now being assuming the throne in heaven. Now, that's all good until we get to verse 7, and we find that a war breaks out in heaven. And remember, this is a vision of something in heaven. Michael and his archangel fighting with this dragon. Does this really happen? I don't know. Again, we're talking very symbolic. I don't know if this is supposed to be a historical record of something that happened in heaven as much as it is something that had its origin in heaven as the plan of God that unfolded over time as Satan sought to devour men, trying to eventually devour that one child that was supposed to crush his head. And as all of this happened, he did not prevail. Well, that seems to be the truth. And so the great dragon, that is the serpent, that is the devil or Satan, he tries to deceive the whole world. And he was cast to earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Well, that seems to be very descriptive of the way Satan works as well. Now I heard a loud voice in heaven saying in heaven, now salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have come, for the accuser of our brethren who accuses them before our God day and night has been cast down. Now, we might make a reference back to the book of Job and find that great accuser, the one that accused our brethren, like Job, before God, and continues to. Only now salvation has been brought, and that accuser doesn't have that power anymore. And they, that is our brethren, how did they overcome him? How did they overcome this accuser? Through three things: through the blood of the Lamb, through the word of his truth, the word of his testimony, and number three, because they didn't value their life enough that they were scared to die for the faith in the one that had been promised. And so we have all that, and now rejoicing in heaven amongst all those who came before, knowing that those that live now and those that will live in the future can have that same victory over that same accuser. Now, this woman, when the dragon saw that he had been cast to earth, whenever his plan had failed, the one who gave birth to the male child, the woman is going to try to persecute her. Well, what's the result of what comes from this woman, except for the church, which is his body? As it seeks to be persecuted, she goes into the wilderness, and she's there for a time and times and half a time. Okay. A time is one. Times, that's plural. Let's make it two. And half times then would be another half of one. So we have a one, a two, that's three, and another half, that's 3.5. We fit our 3.5 mark again, just as we've done several times. And so she's there hiding from the serpent. The serpent is then going to spew water out of his mouth. This is a tough one. What is the primary weapon of Satan? Well, from the very beginning, it's been lies. What does he spew out of his mouth? A whole flood of lies. Lies about what? Lies about the woman. What does the woman represent now? The fulfillment of the plan of the promise from the woman through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, through the 12 tribes, through the birth of the Virgin Mary. He used lies and spewed them out, but the earth, those that are recognize a lie, they just swallow that. They just swallow that down. That just swallows up the flood. And the dragon is spewed out of his mouth, and the dragon just got madder and madder at the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring. And here's where some clarity comes with all of this. And so if we could have started here and worked our way backwards, that would have helped make all of this a little more clear maybe for us. But I think this kind of, I hope, ties a ribbon on what we've discussed to this point. It says that those who are the offspring of the woman are those who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Well, who is that? Well, that's very obviously Christians. Well, anything else, any of the rest of this might be a little bit unclear. It's very clear that the offspring of the woman are Christians. Well, the offspring of the woman was not the son that she bore, singular, but Christians are a result of the son that the woman bore, the singular in Jesus Christ. And so all of this kind of works together. And again, remember, this is a vision. It's not concrete in its understanding. Its meaning is concrete, but our understanding of each individual thing kind of flows. That's how the woman can go from representing Eve to representing Mary to representing the church as the bride of Christ. This analogy is able to float kind of through this section. But I think that hopefully helps you some with your understanding of Revelation chapter 12. And I hope you will continue to read this with us. And as you read, as always, our prayer is that you allow the Word of God to be a lamp unto your feet and a light unto your path.